Hi guys, welcome to today's webinar. We're just waiting for a few more people to join and we'll kick it off in the next 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you. Sit tight. Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Ask Me Anything with Microsoft Teams. This is the latest in a series of remote working webinars that Action Point has been providing to our extended mailing list customers, clients and followers. Delighted that you can join us for today's webinar. We live in unusual times and unusual circumstances, and remote working has really come to the fore of people's lives. Action Point has been very, very busy servicing our clients over the past few weeks and now months, to be honest. So look, delighted that everyone can join us here today. As I said, we're here to help. So if you have any inquiries, whether to myself or Finian, our speaker today, please don't hesitate to follow up with us afterwards. Finian's details are on his slide there today. So today's webinar is all about Microsoft Teams. So Finian's going to go through a presentation. And at the end, you can ask him any questions that you may have about Microsoft Teams or remote working. Before I kick off, I'll just do a quick introduction to today's speaker. Finian Nally is head of Microsoft Cloud Solutions here at Action Point. He brings more than 15 years in the technology industry to his role. He's very well positioned to speak on remote working as he's experienced in Azure and Microsoft 365 suites. So before I bring Finian in, I'm just going to do a quick poll just to survey the audience and to see where you are on the technology issues of the day. So today's poll: if current COVID-19 restrictions were lifted, how many days per week would you opt to work from home? So if COVID-19 restrictions were lifted, how many days per week would you opt to work from home? So it goes from 1 day to 4 days and 0 days, if that's what you prefer. So take a few seconds there to answer that poll, and it'll give us some good content to delve into the Q&A a little bit later on. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to today's speaker, Finian Nally, if you'd like to take it from here.
Thanks very much, Peter. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. I'll just let Peter finish off that poll, which we have. Great. So on a kind of wet and dreary day, it's good to get on top of Microsoft Teams, and the tool that I suppose an awful lot of businesses are adapting to and are using it in a large way at the moment. Really, today's agenda, we're going to get under the hood of Microsoft Teams. I'll give a high-level view of what it is first and foremost. We'll get under the hood then in terms of the context of remote working and Microsoft Teams, how it actually works, and I'll be switching back and forth between a demo environment and slides to give you a sense of what that actually looks like in action. We'll also chat on how we can be successful with Teams. It's very easy to use this technology, but how do we make sure it actually works successfully within our organization? And as Peter said, we'll move into the Ask Me Anything. Feel free to ask questions throughout. Just pop your question in the question box there. Anything and everything that you may have, and we'll hopefully be able to answer it at the end. So in thinking about the world we live in right now, and I suppose in speaking with our customers and extended network over the last number of months, I often ask the question, what does teamwork actually look like for you today? And the answer we're getting is I suppose, quite disparate in terms of we're seeing a lot of disjointed collaboration and file sharing, people scrambling to use different tools. We're seeing shadow IT creep into businesses, people adopting Dropbox and WhatsApp and Slack and various other tools. And really, no real core central solution for proper remote working, bringing all of those elements together. And a lot of the reasoning for that is simply because people have been forced to do this. This isn't something that we've had time to plan and prepare for. Back, I think it was the 16th or 17th of March when the first lockdown was announced. Nobody really expected this to come so quick, or expected that they'd have to simply send a message to all their employees and say, well, actually, you can't come into the office anymore. So this is something that's been thrown upon people. And as well as that, we're bringing into the mix so many diverse skill sets. Some people were well used to working remotely or working outside the office, and they were able to adapt very, very quickly, whereas many others weren't. So the challenge for us in working in our business and working with our colleagues is, right, how do we actually start to normalize this? How do we start to actually escape from this kind of craziness of lots of different solutions, lots of different ways of doing things, and ultimately bring it all together and start to make it easier for our staff and our wider teams? And the way we do that is primarily with Microsoft Teams. Microsoft Teams is called the hub for teamwork within Microsoft 365. And really what it's doing, it's trying to give you a window, almost a jump off point into your day-to-day work, into your conversation with your colleagues, into your interaction with files, and even into your interaction with many of your third-party line of business applications. And a question I'm often asked is that, oh, Teams is very new, should we trust it? How do we know it's going to cut the mustard and be up to scratch, like versus other tools we've seen in the past? The reality is Teams, as of a month ago, was 3 years old. Again, a month ago, over 44 million users globally were using Teams on a daily basis. So it is tried and tested. It's been in the wild for a long, long time now. It's evolved on a continuous basis and continues to evolve and be improved, with new features being added on a regular basis. And for, I suppose, a large proportion of Irish and global businesses, it is the central communication tool, or has become a central communication tool more than ever now, the fact that we're all, or many of us are remote working. So to touch on some of the key features before I go into a much deeper dive, what does Teams actually do? First and foremost, persistent one-on-one and group chat, so instant messaging. So if we think about how we may have worked in the past, an awful lot of us worked primarily in email, often sending one-liner emails, or just even something in the subject of an email to one or many of our colleagues, with an expectation that maybe they'd reply back quickly, or we'd get an answer back very quickly. The reality is, I suppose, email was never designed for that. Email was always designed to be a slow process of sending information back and forth, and you would get that information back whenever the other person was ready. Teams eliminates a lot of that conversation by putting it centrally and giving it into context, so that you understand, okay, if someone's online, I should expect a reply back for them. If they're not online, clearly I won't expect a reply back for them immediately. But it also takes away a lot of that noise that's in your existing inbox and categorizes that and puts that centrally into Teams. So it allows you to, I suppose, reduce the volume of work you typically have in your email. It also allows you to elevate that one-on-one conversation, that text-based conversation, into powerful online meetings. And for ourselves, Teams has been a tool we've been using for the last 3 years, and pretty much, we used, I suppose, it for virtually all of our meetings, whereas we'd have some level of the team in the office and some of the team outside the office. Right now, the reality is all of us are outside the office, all of us are working from home. So to have that face-to-face contact or experience really improves things and makes meetings go faster. It also, I suppose, reduces the volume of text and the volume of not only instant messaging, but also emails that has to go back and forth, either on a one-to-one basis or on a one-to-many basis. Teams also has the ability to give you enterprise calling and voice, so it can replace your full telephony system. So it means people can call you, your Teams client becomes your phone system and your phone provider, meaning that everything is centralized through there. All conversations, not only those video conversations, with your internal team, but also external voice and video conversations with your clients, customers, suppliers, whoever else can happen through Teams. Because it's part of Microsoft 365, all the native apps are built in. So my Word, my Excel, my PowerPoint, all of those tools that I'm used to using on a day-to-day basis are within Teams. And I can easily have a conversation around a document or a piece of work, open that up natively within Teams and use it very, very easily. And we'll show some of that in a while. But I suppose one of the things I really like about Teams is that it's, Microsoft have an understanding that the world we live in isn't just the Microsoft world. And every business that out there has a multitude of tools that they're using, be it accounts package, CRM package, payroll, HR system, whatever the case may be is. And the beauty of Teams is that it is that powerful platform that allows you to extend your third-party tools into Teams. So it means that I can have information all contextualized together in the one place, both from a files and data point of view, but also from an application point of view. I mentioned earlier on that the Teams is constantly evolving, and it's evolving probably even faster than it ever was, given I suppose what's going on in the world right now. So we're constantly seeing new innovations, new features come into Teams. So simple things like inline message translation, if you're working with colleagues or customers across different languages, live captions and subtitles being able to appear in real time as I'm having a video conversation, and things like mobile devices, customizing my background so that you no longer see that my home office is in fact my home bedroom type thing, gives a lot more power to the platform and really shows that that innovation is consistently being put into the platform based on customer feedback. So while all of those things are great, and I know I'm conscious I've swept through that very, very quickly, how do we bring that into the context of remote work, and how do we actually practically start to use this and make sure we're effective in doing this, in working remotely? And this is a slide I suppose I've been using for about 12 to 18 months now with customers. And it's funny because, even going back 3 months ago, I was saying to customers, well, roughly a third of your meetings are virtual in nature. A large proportion of your employees probably work at home a fraction of the time. The reality is those numbers are completely different now. We're all working remotely. We're all have to deliver our meetings virtual 100% of the time, kind of thing. So things have changed. So let's look at, from a remote working context, how that changes. So looking at our instant messaging, our chat facility, and this is a snapshot from my own Teams a couple of weeks back, where I was involved in, over the course of the day, 13 separate conversations. So some were on a one-on-one basis and some were on a one-to-many basis. But they were 13 conversations or 13 and more pieces of information back and forth between colleagues that I didn't need to have over email, that I was able to have in the context of the conversation with that person or the group. And I was also able to get information very, very rapidly back on. So it improved my own experience about how I got work done quicker. It also improved my colleagues' experience because I didn't end up clogging up their inboxes. And also it allowed me to work better with my teams. So at a very simple level, that one-to-one communication or that instant messaging when we're working from home and people are working different hours, gives a powerful ability to communicate. Secondly, when we're working from home, I suppose, and we're working remotely, and that power of the video communication is key. And really, we use this in Action Point to not only have, Teams meetings, for example, what you're seeing in front of you, but we also use it for having virtual coffees, virtual Friday drinks, those kind of things. So we're bringing in the cultural aspect to our business. We use it right now for our customer workshop. So if we're involved in a conversation with a customer about designing a new system or a new solution, it's all done over Teams via video chat, leveraging the facilities around the whiteboarding, the video call elements, and things like we're being able to record the meeting as well. So I'll jump into a Teams client just to give you a sense of what that actually looks like in action. So what you're seeing on screen right now is a Teams client, and right now I happen to have it in the calendar view. But if I look over on the left-hand side, this is my key menu here. I see a number of things. I see the activity, I can see chat, I can see Teams and calls. But what you'll also notice is that some of these have a red icon beside them. So if we focus in on chat first and foremost, and I can see that Alex here has sent me a quick message based on a reply I sent him earlier on. I asked him, are you attending today's stand-up? And he goes, yeah, I'll be there. Thanks for the reminder. So I've almost killed two birds with one stone by having that quick instant conversation with Alex. I've reminded him that the meeting is on, and I've also confirmed that he's been attending. So maybe traditionally that would have been an email thread going back and forth 2 or 3 times. What I'm also able to do here with Alex is see what actually Alex has an orange dot beside him. So what that is telling me is that he's online, he's logged on today, but chances are he's actually away from his desk. In addition, I'm able to go in and actually get an organizational view. You know, if I've been tic-tacking back and forth with Alex all day about a particular work or project or something like that, and it turns out he's offline, he's gone out for lunch, maybe he's involved with a meeting with a client, or maybe he's finished up for the day because, you know, he needs to mind his kid or something like that. I'm able to get a sense of, right, actually, where does Alex sit in the organization? Who else is on his team? And actually, as I'm starting to look at that, I can see, well, actually, do you know what? Alex has changed from an orange dot to a green dot, which means I know he's available, I know he's online. So if I send him an instant message, chances are I should get a reply back very, very quickly. So we can see that the speed in which that happens, you know, I can say, hey, they can say hi back very, very quickly. So I can ask him, you know, can you help me with this particular project? Can we, you know, work on a document together? Have you got that information for the customer? All very, very quickly and easily accessible. Well, that is just text-based communication. I can actually easily elevate that up into a video call. Literally with just one click, I can just press a button and the video call is there. So you can see it's accessing my webcam and that person is calling Alex. I'm not going to go through with that call now because I don't want to interrupt the sound on our video feed today. But you can see how quickly that happened. There was no worrying about, right, how do we set up our conference provider? You know, what PIN number do we need? You know, do I need a password to access the service? I'm actually able to communicate very, very rapidly with Alex, and it enables me to have that really, really powerful conversation very, very quickly. Switching back to our deck for a second, I suppose going from that kind of one-to-one and one-to-group conversation, how else can teams help in the context of remote working? And one of the biggest areas that we see is something called an organizational wide team. So if we think about things right now and the volume of communication that is going across our organization, you know, updates from HR about, you know, have there been any layoffs? Has there been any salary reduction? What are your entitlements? Maybe updates from the health and safety team about, you know, how to social distance, what the company is doing with regards to social distancing. Maybe there's updates from the IT team about, right, how do we do remote working? What tools do you need? And lots of other conversation in between all of that, between people. All of this, again, typically becomes or is sent over email, company blasts sent out into the masses. Some of that is read or picked up by people. The reality is an awful lot of that isn't picked up by people. So using something like an organizational wide team allows me to communicate effectively with the entire group about everything that's important to everyone, be it, you know, we've a new member of staff starting, or here's the latest tips for remote working. Here's the tools that you should be using for the remote working with our organization. So if I jump back into the demo environment, I can show you what that actually looks like. So again, I'm in my chat window here, so I can simply step down into my actual teams. And here I can see all the teams that I'm a member of. So this is all the various projects or groups or pieces of work that I'm involved in. And if we look at my company hub here, this is in fact our organizational wide team. And it has a number of channels within there. I can see we've got the general channel, which are just going to be the general day-to-day updates. I've got another channel here for other company updates. Someone has set up a channel for COVID-19 updates, and HR have a dedicated channel. So what type of things could we use this for? What could we do it? Well, maybe we can say, well, actually, we've surveyed our customers. We want to get the latest satisfaction report. And we can see Alex has posted that to the entire organization, said, listen, we got our satisfaction report out. We're still at 98%. Everything still looks great. And on the back of that, we can see Emily has chimed in here and actually delivered praise to Alex and says, you know, great team, you know, you and your team are doing great. So we're bringing in some of that cultural element and some of that kind of pat on the back elements that, you know, we're not actually able to do in a face-to-face scenario anymore. But again, we've now got a piece of information that me as an end user, I can consume that whenever I want. Maybe it's at the end of the day, I dive into the company-wide team, or maybe I jump in whenever that element or whenever that item has been posted in there, but it's accessible to me whenever I want. I can also look at the company updates and see, okay, well, Megan has posted some information on some of our stores opening times. I can also see she's posted information on Teams training. Great, I'm new to Teams. Now I know I can access the Teams training and I can see where things are. And as well as that, you know, I've been landed working remotely. I just have a basic laptop, but you know what, I'd love a webcam and a screen and a keyboard and mouse, and to make my experience from home a bit better. Traditionally, how would we have done that? Maybe we would have picked up the phone or emailed someone or gone around the houses to figure out our process of that. But this particular business here is to say, well, actually, do you know what? We've just set up a form within our teams. If you need something from home, be it a monitor or webcam or a headset, or something like that, fill in the details in here. I need these ASAP, and simply submit the form. And that'll go through to the owner of that form, who is obviously the person responsible for dishing out equipment. They'll order it for you, they'll send it out. But again, a very, very efficient way of doing things. Again, moving away from email, moving away from that process that previously mightn't have been the best process. Likewise, if we look at HR, again, if I'm concerned about what's going on from a HR point of view, I might want to know, okay, what's the latest on the bike to work scheme? May not be too relevant to me right now, but accessing our HR system and maybe booking some annual leave, or maybe, I wonder how I access revenue to make sure that, I'm still getting paid correctly, or that my taxes are being run correctly. How do I access those systems? Well, what we've done here is we've just simply added the links in here into our HR channel and given, I suppose, our teams a jump off point, a way they can access that information without having to send an email blast. Hey, does anyone have the link to the HR system? Or how do I get access? How do I book annual leave? All of that information is centralized here. So we have this organizational wide team communicating out effectively, both in terms of everything that's going on right now, but also in terms of all the tools that people need to use on a day-to-day basis. So jumping back into the deck for a second, where else do we use Teams? How else do we use it remotely? Fundamentally, what we're trying to do is working from home is no different to what we're trying to do in the office. We're actually trying to do our job. We're trying to do our work. And what Teams does is kind of like I showed you in the org-wide Teams, it delivers all of that in context. So let's say we're working on a new project. We might have design aspects to it. We might have marketing aspects to it. We're going to have probably files associated with that. So within the Teams window, I can easily access all the files, all the conversation. I can also access maybe the project plan associated with that. Traditionally, we would have had to go out and maybe, buy a copy of Microsoft Project. Someone would have had to put a plan together. That plan would have been sent over email. And after a number of days or a number of weeks, that plan probably would have been forgotten about. Tasks, would have been assigned to people, but maybe they never followed through in them. No one was keeping track of the tasks. But by using the Teams channel and building in things like Planner, the task assignment, the files all together in one place, we're able to actually deliver a very, very powerful experience, and even extend it much further to say, well, actually, maybe we need to deliver reporting data or financial data within here. And again, jumping back into our demo client in here, let's see a bit of that in action. So for example, here we have a team here for board meetings. The company still needs to operate effectively. The board still need to deliver effective governance back into the team. So we've set up a number of channels here where not only the board, but also the supporting staff from the board can work. So we have a channel here that has our draft documents. People upload the draft documents in here and they can be submitted to the board. We also have something for end of year reports, and the tic-tacking back and forth between the accounts team can happen in here. But then if we look at actually our full-blown monthly meeting in here, well, we have the conversation back and forth. We have the files that everyone is using. So for example, here's the minutes from the last meeting. Well, rather than opening up Word or having to worry about where that file is actually saved, I simply have gone into the Files tab, I've clicked on the meeting minutes, and straight away those minutes have opened up for me. And I can see, yeah, here's the minutes from the last meeting. Yeah, I'm up to speed with what exactly is going on. As a board member, then I want to have a look over, okay, well, let's have a look at the financial view of the organization. Again, someone has put in the financial data, the financial reporting for me to access very, very easy. I haven't had to jump out into any third-party application. I haven't had to worry about where those files are. So for me as a board member or as a remote worker, I'm now getting access to that information very, very easily. And it's bringing all the information I need centrally into the one location. So again, I can see we're having upcoming board elections. Here's the tasks associated with it. Again, just flicking into another team, here's an example of, we're running a go-to-market plan. Here's all the conversation that has gone with that go-to-market plan. Here's the files associated with it. So thinking about me working remotely, previously, again, I would have been jumping in and out of different applications. Now I'm able to very much focus in on, okay, this is the important stuff for me. Here's where I want to be. here are the areas where I can get all the information centrally and deliver everything I need in a very, very easily accessible experience. So moving back into the deck. So we've shown, I suppose, moving from a basic level of instant messaging, video calling, all of those kind of things, up to a level of being able to work collaboratively, bringing all those project or task or pieces of work information together. So it means that not only me, who's involved in the project from day one, but if I need to bring in other people, maybe from other teams, maybe they're new staff, if I need to bring them into the mix, they can very, very easily get up to speed with what's going on in a very rapid fashion. But I suppose to give you an illustration of how we can even go further, we can extend teams dramatically. So one of the areas we can do that is with bots. So we can actually start to put in automated bots within our teams to, maybe automate an incident request, or that example I showed you earlier on about the requesting new remote working equipment, be it a monitor or something like that. We can actually put bots in there to help our users self-service. So maybe they've forgotten their password, or maybe they're having trouble accessing a particular system. Rather than bombard a certain member of staff or member of the team with that information, we can actually use a bot to speed up that process and to deliver that automated approach very, very rapidly within teams. We can also introduce automation within teams as well. So that example I showed you of the board meeting where there was two channels there. There was the channel for the draft documents and the channel for the actual documents. Well, here's an example of introducing some automation, some block-based automation to say, well, actually, when a file is put into the draft documents, send a request to someone, a senior individual within the organization who we have designated as the approver of those documents, send an automated request for them to approve it. Once they actually approve things, then move that file into the actual production board documents. So we've introduced a level of automation. We've taken out manual steps that previously may have been part and parcel of what we do. And really the last part then of or where we can go to teams is with building in customization, building in applications that are customized to our needs. So for example, the one you're seeing on screen right now is a crisis communication tool. Microsoft would have developed that back at the start of August for organizations to, I suppose, help in their crisis management, given that at the very start there was a lot of chaotic approaches to things. That was an app that was built very, very quickly to do some very, very key things. But the beauty of that is that we're surfacing that app, or we're delivering that to our staff through Microsoft Teams. So again, thinking of Teams as being our jump off point, our window into our conversation with our staff, our communication with our colleagues and wider team, through to managing our work, and also insight into applications and helping us automate how we do things. So the summary, it's given us that quick, effective communication. It's given us that information within context, and it's given us that ability to extend it to our business need and help us automate, many of those paper-based tasks which we simply cannot do anymore. So again, I made the point earlier on, the technology is great, but it's down to how you use it and how do you actually go about making it successful? How do we make sure that Teams is going to be, effective within our business? One of the key areas is equipment, and this is something we've seen in the past a little bit, where people have maybe commented on, well, the quality of my video isn't that good, the quality of my sound on a call isn't that good, and 99% of the time it's actually down to the equipment that the people are using. So we always advise, listen, if you're using Teams and if you're having that conference calling experience or video calling experience, make sure you're giving your team, your staff, the correct equipment, Teams certified devices. And Teams certified doesn't necessarily mean expensive. So for example, my own setup here is I have a laptop, I have a Dell monitor, and I have a Logitech webcam, which does both my video and voice. The Logitech webcam is Teams certified, so I always have a great experience. But in essence, the cost of my remote working setup is actually quite minimal, but is very, very effective. So it's important to have the correct equipment. I suppose there are some maybe non-technical aspects to things as well. It's important, that you actually set up your physical workspace, that you make sure that you're working from a place that, you're designating as, right, this is my work zone. It could well be the end of the kitchen table. It could be the back bedroom. But at least if you're designating that your work zone, you're conscious that you're in work mode when you're actually there. It's important as well to get your video ready, making sure that, your video actually works and that people are able to see you. There used to be a trend maybe going back before all of this COVID-19 thing started, where people would just simply not turn on their video. Now, certainly in our own business, it was mandatory at the start to turn on video, but we've gone from a scenario where everyone just turns it on by default. Everyone wants to engage with their colleagues effectively, and everyone wants to see the facial expression, the real-time interaction with people is very, very powerful and gets things done in a lot more effective way. As well as that, when using Teams, try to use the tools that are there to the best of your ability, or to the best of the tool's ability almost. So in other words, work on documents collaboratively. If you're having a meeting about a particular Word document or Excel document, well, rather than just having that document closed or one person working on it, share the document, share the screen, and more than one person can work on that document at the same time. So what you're doing is you're actually working more efficiently. Switch to digital events. We've done it certainly in Action Point. All of our, not only our internal meetings, but also our external customer facing, be it workshops, training, etc., are all done over Teams. Obviously some exceptions to that in terms of today's webinar, mainly from a management point of view, but Teams has become the go-to tool within our organization. I think it's important to remember as well, though, when using Teams, the same rules apply to a normal meeting. Before you're about to have a meeting, an interactive meeting within Teams, prep in advance. During the meeting, like I said, co-author on documents, participate in that meeting in a proactive fashion, and afterwards log the meeting notes within that team as well. There's also a softer side of things, and I kind of alluded to it earlier on. Being in a remote working environment, it's very easy to be siloed or feel isolated. Again, I use the example of we use the virtual coffee breaks or virtual water coolers. It's something that we encourage all of our teams to participate in, to say, well, listen, we're going to set up a meeting for 11 o'clock today for 10 minutes. There's no shop talk, but let's just see how everyone's doing. So we're actively checking in on people. We're actively getting that understanding that not only are people working, but they're minding their kids as well. They're making dinner. They're trying to, sort themselves out. There is a lot going on. So it's important that that is factored into your remote working experience as well. And certainly in the conversations I've had with a lot of organizations, there is that expectation that, this is remote working, but it's remote working with a difference. And there's a lot of other nuances to it as well. The last area I just want to touch on is really some resources, and to touch on a few things that have come up over the last number of weeks. Firstly, around trust and security. I often get asked, well, should we use Zoom? Should we use Google? Why do we use Teams? I think first and foremost, Teams, the level of security and the level of control that is built in there is second to none. It is an enterprise tool first and foremost. It is a business tool. It's part of, I suppose, the package of what an awful lot of organizations have already. So it's important that you actually start to use the stuff that is there, rather than going off piste and start to use some third-party tools. So all the security, and we'll send out these slides after the full information is available around that. Likewise, training is available, so that there's lots of links and lots of information Microsoft have posted out there. And even as a quick example of that, if I flick back into my Teams client for a second, let me just bring it up on the screen. Which it doesn't appear to want to. There we go. Even if I look down at the bottom left-hand corner of Teams and I click on Help, I have a button here for training. So straight away, when I click on training, I can get into all kind of quick tips, quick videos, how to set up a channel, how to add files, even down to the level of how to access Teams from a mobile device. So lots and lots of really good information is there right at my fingertips. But in addition to that, Action Point, we also deliver training through our Action Point Academy. That's going virtual, I think, from May onwards. So certainly tune in, and we'll be happy to help you and your team get, I suppose, upscaled with the use of Teams. And with that, I suppose I see a lot of questions pop in there in the question box. I'm going to hand it over to Peter for questions. But like I said, I've swept through it very, very quickly. If you have any questions, feel free to ask now, or feel free to reach out to me at the end.
Finian, thanks a million. Very interactive presentation there. Wonderful to see Teams being demonstrated so well, and even I have ideas now going back to the day job after watching that. So really well done on that. I'm going to kick things off for a poll. and I'm just going to share the results of our poll. And I guess what I'm trying to highlight is, will there be long-term behavior changes, and will our organizations will prepare for remote working when things, I suppose, go back to normal in inverted commas. So I just remind ourselves of the question: if COVID-19 restrictions were lifted, how many days per week would you opt to work from home? So we're seeing the majority of people opting for around 2 days per week, a little less on 3 days per week, and a number still on 4+ days per week. I guess can you comment on that? I mean, how are organizations going to deal with this this demand now for remote working?
Yeah, I think in the conversations I've been having with people, a lot of people have realized while we're at the extreme of it now in terms of 5 days fully remote working, there is a lot of benefits. You know, there's a lot of benefits in terms of that work-life balance. Even I spoke to someone yesterday who said, you know, I'm actually able to sit down and have dinner with my kids every day. You know, every day of the week, consistently, we sit down and we have a family meal, whereas previously that wasn't possible. Now, I think as someone myself who's worked remotely for a long, long time, I used to balance it with maybe 3 days a week from home and 2 or 3, depending on what way the week fell, back in the office or out with customers or something like that. So, you know, I think companies are going to have to realize that there is a greater demand for remote working, that people are actually very, very effective when they're remote working, but also that we still crave getting back to some level of reality insofar as I still want to meet people face to face. I still want to have that quick connection with the office. You know, I mentioned earlier on about the virtual water coolers and virtual coffee breaks. You know, they're nice, and you know they're a good way to check in on people given the current circumstances. But the reality is that they're no substitute for actually, you know, bumping into someone in the hallway, having a quick chat with them, seeing their body language, you know, hearing the tone of their voice, all of those kind of things. So, you know, there's definitely pluses and minuses, but certainly I would see a large demand on businesses to continue a level of remote working across the entire staff base.
Very good. Thank you very much, Finian. A question here from Laura. Hi, Finian. If I was doing a demo with a client, how would I share my screen with the client? Thank you.
Yeah, what I'll do, Laura, is I'll flick back to one of my slides that would have showed that. And there's simply a button. So when you start your video, a little command bar comes up at the bottom, and it has a number of options. Let me get the right slide for you. There we go. Here we are. So here's the command bar that comes up at the bottom of the screen. You'll see the meeting duration first and foremost. You'll then see the camera icon, turn your camera on and off, the mute icon, turn your microphone on or off, and then the next one is the screen sharing icon. So that kind of square box with the arrow, and that allows you to either share your full screen or share an individual application. And just beside that then, just for your own info, you'll see those 3 dots there. That's the extra menu. So within there, you can click the button that says start recording, or even you can go into blur your background so people don't see that you're in your back bedroom or your home office or wherever you may be. But all the features and all the info is there right in front of you at your fingertips.
Okay, thanks a million, Finian. Yeah, the share screen option, very powerful indeed. In Teams, a question here from Dermot Maloney. In Teams, when sharing desktop and playing videos, we see video skips and users miss details. Is there anything in Teams we can do to improve this?
So normally that's not actually a Teams issue. It's normally an issue with either your broadband or the device you're actually using. So typically when we see skipping, if it's at your end, it's obviously the device you're using. If it's at the end user end, it's probably to do with their connection issues. I suppose the beauty of Teams is that sitting behind the scenes is a full admin engine. And what that actually allows you to do is report in detail and seeing where the issues are. So for example, you'll be able to see all the people on the call. You'll be able to see, okay, where the call quality was poor. Was it poor to just one particular user, or was it poor coming from you? And was that actually down to your connectivity and network connection, or was that down to the device that you're actually using? So it can get very, very granular. Not only the reporting is granular, but also the level of policy and governance behind the scenes is very, very granular. So I suppose the advice, Jeremy, would be to check out the Teams admin center, have a look and see when that particular call happened and drill into it and see where the actual issue was.
Thanks, Finian. Question from Peter. It's one we've probably had a couple of times. He's wondering why we're doing the Teams presentation and go to webinar. Is it to do with the volumes? Thanks. That's from Peter.
Yeah, good question, Peter. It's simply put, it's down to the admin side of things. So we've actually ran the same presentation through Teams. It works flawlessly, works absolutely brilliantly. But what the GoToWebinar tool that we're using right now, purely from a webinar point of view, it handles all the email registration, it handles all the reminder emails, it handles all the surveying at the end. So it's almost the before and after aspect, the admin aspect of a webinar, GoToWebinar handles, which it's designed to do. So that's the only reason. Teams can handle on its own up to 250 participants. But if you use something like Teams Live Meetings, that can handle up to 100,000 participants. So there's certainly no limitations really on the number of people who can use Teams natively.
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Finian. A question here from Patricia. Hi, just wondering if there's a way to increase the number of participants shown on screen. Another common one.
So right now, if we're talking about video chat, what you're seeing probably at the moment, if you're using Teams, is 2x2. So in other words, 4 video screens. That is going to increase to 3x3, so in total 9 video screens, and that's due to happen either this week or next week, and then that's going to increase further. Obviously, you can see all the participants not only down the bottom but along the side as well. So if you click on the participant view, you're actually able to see every single participant that's in the meeting. So that can be useful for seeing who's actually attended, who's turned up to the meeting. But also, if you're hearing a bit of background noise, you can see who's making the background noise, whose kids are screaming in the background, and you might just want to mute them while the conversation continues.
Excellent, thanks, Finian. Yeah, it's an eagerly anticipated feature, adding the additional screens. So I don't see any more questions. Guys, if you want to get them in, please do. Finian's here for the next, as long as you need really, to answer any of your Microsoft Teams questions. I just want to take a second. Oh, I have a question here from Dermot. I'd be rude to skip it. In a Teams channel files, is there a way to disable open in SharePoint from menu?
As far as I know, there isn't. I know you can do a lot of configuration on the policy side, but I suppose the reason the open in SharePoint is there is that the file engine that is part of Teams is in fact SharePoint. So you're just front-ending a SharePoint document library. So off the top of my head, no, there is no way to disable that because that's where the files actually sit. Okay.
Very good. I just might take a second there just to, I suppose, thank everyone for joining today's webinar, and thank you for delivering great presentation, Finian. I'll get back to those questions in a second. Just a reminder, I suppose if you want to check out any of our remote working services and content, we've got lots of stuff around both the holistic and technological aspects of remote working. Go to actionpoint.ie/remote-working. I've left a link in the chat box. Upcoming tomorrow, we have a webinar looking at the remote management features of Windows Virtual Desktop and really that whole area of desktop as a service. So I suppose what we're seeing in our clients is it's proven challenging to manage multiple users from a remote working perspective. Windows Virtual Desktop has been used by a number of our clients to great effect. So we just wanted to kind of give people more information on the solution, and Finian and our colleagues in Micro Warehouse will be running that presentation. I have a couple more questions here, Finian. Peter Weston, how can you control your data within the organization?
Quite a broad question, Peter, but I suppose in the context of Teams, really there's 2 aspects to that. One is around the policy engine, which I mentioned earlier on. So setting up the policies about what's available to users, who can create teams, who can create channels, all of those kind of things. So that gets very, very granular. You know, what apps can be turned on, what can't be turned on, those kind of things. But also on the reporting side as well, in terms of looking at, you know, data loss prevention things, putting in tagging on data, and being able to report that back to say, right, are we compliant based on ISO, PCI, etc. So quite a broad question, and I'm not giving you a straight answer, but there's multiple engines behind the scenes that can control that access.
Yeah, it might be something you can take offline there, guys, but a good question, Peter. Thanks for that. John Nesbitt just saying thanks, Peter and Finian. No problem, John. Hope to see you again soon. A question here from Darren. When holding a video call and sharing the screen, is there a way to block the attendee from recording the content?
So in terms of, you know, you can put some policies, all right, to stop or to decide if a meeting can be recorded or not. When a meeting is being recorded, it's clear to everyone, a bar appears across the top of the screen to show that it is being recorded. So you as the organizer can obviously stop that if you want it. But if someone is using some third-party piece of software behind the scenes, which is recording their entire desktop, or they're using their mobile phone to record it, really you've no way of stopping that. So there's always limits to these things, and there's always ways, people will always find ways around them, kind of thing. So I think that's why it's important you put the control in from the start. And if you're having a particular meeting, that the content of that meeting is relevant to the group of people that are there, and sensitivity is relevant to the audience, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, very good question again there, Darren. So that's brilliant, guys. I think that just about concludes the Q&A. Another fantastic AMA with Finian here today. As I said, the Windows Virtual Desktop webinar takes place tomorrow. If you'll be on a mailing list off the back of this, and we'll keep you up to speed. So keep an eye on those emails coming in from Action Point. We have tons of content and great webinars coming up over the next few weeks and months. So that's it for today. I'd like to thank Finian for his time, and I'd like to thank you all for tuning in, and we hope to see you on a webinar again soon. A survey will follow this webinar, so we appreciate any feedback that you may have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.